The great hall of Valdres Keep fell silent when Alpha King Calum entered. His boots struck the ancient stone with measured purpose, each step echoing off walls that had witnessed 1,000 years of wolf kings before him. Torchlight caught the silver threading through his dark hair, a mark of the curse that had plagued his bloodline for 3 generations. At 30 winters old, he looked a decade older. The curse was eating him alive, and everyone in the kingdom knew it. The delegation from the southern reaches arrives at sundown, my king. His advisor Brennan walked 2 steps behind, voice pitched low. They bring another offer, another potential mate. Calum said nothing. He had stopped responding to such announcements months ago. 17 potential mates, 17 failures. Each one had recoiled from the bond, their wolves unable to withstand the darkness coiled inside him. The curse demanded a price, and that price was solitude. He was halfway across the hall when he heard it. A voice. Not the simpering melodies of court singers or the practiced harmonies of trained performers. This was something raw and unpolished, floating up from the far end of the massive chamber where the morning light barely reached. The song had no words he recognized, just a haunting rise and fall of notes that seemed to wrap around his chest and squeeze. Calum stopped walking. "My king?" Brennan asked. But the Alpha King was no longer listening to his advisor. His wolf, dormant for so long he had nearly forgotten its voice, stirred in the depths of his consciousness. Not just stirred, it lunged against its chains, suddenly and violently awake, straining toward the source of that impossible sound. At the far end of the great hall, a figure knelt on the cold stones. A woman, her brown hair escaping from a hasty braid, her dress the rough gray fabric of the lowest servants. She scrubbed the floor with methodical movements, and as she worked, she sang. She seemed utterly unaware of the world around her, lost in whatever place the music took her. "Who is that?" The words came out rougher than Calum intended. Brennan squinted into the shadows. "I do not know, my king. A kitchen servant, perhaps? One of the floor scrubbers from the lower quarters?" Calum's wolf was howling now, actually howling inside his skull. In 20 years since his first shift, the beast had never once made such a sound. The sensation was so foreign that for a moment, he could not move, could not breathe. The woman's song dipped into a lower register, and Calum felt it in his bones. Something ancient and primal recognized that voice, that melody, that broken creature kneeling in the shadows of his hall. "Bring her here." Brennan hesitated. "My king, she is merely a servant. The delegation will arrive within hours, and you should prepare to." I said, "Bring her here." The command resonated with alpha authority, the kind that could not be disobeyed, the kind Calum rarely used because it felt like a violation of free will. He used it now without hesitation. 2 guards moved toward the woman, their armor clinking in the sudden silence. The singing stopped abruptly, and Calum watched her head snap up, watched fear flood her features as she registered the approaching soldiers. She scrambled backward, nearly tripping over her bucket of soapy water. Her eyes darted around the hall like a trapped animal seeking escape. When the guards reached for her arms, she flinched so violently that something hot and protective surged through Calum's blood. "Do not touch her." His voice cracked across the hall like thunder. "She walks freely." The guards stepped back immediately, confusion evident in their postures. The woman stood frozen between them, her chest heaving with panicked breaths, her gaze fixed on the floor as propriety demanded of someone of her station. "Come," Calum said, forcing his voice to soften. "I would speak with you." She approached slowly, each step clearly an act of immense courage. As she drew closer, Calum could see more details. Thin shoulders beneath that rough dress, hands reddened from harsh lye soap, a face that might have been lovely if not for the hollowness of her cheeks and the shadows beneath her eyes. But it was the mark on her neck that made his wolf go absolutely silent, a rejection scar. The jagged white line ran from just below her ear to her collarbone, the unmistakable signature of a severed mate bond. Someone had claimed this woman and then torn that claim away, leaving her wolf wounded in ways that might never heal. She stopped 10 feet from him, her head still bowed. "You summoned me, Alpha King." Her voice, speaking now rather than singing, was thin and trembling. "Your name, Isolde, my king, of no house, of no pack." The words carried the weight of a confession. An Omega with no pack was barely considered a person in their world. She was less than nothing. "You were singing," Calum said. Her thin shoulders flinched. "Forgive me, my king. I did not realize anyone could hear." "I will not." "Why did you stop?" The question seemed to confuse her. Finally, she raised her eyes to meet his, and Calum felt the impact like a physical blow. Her eyes were the color of autumn forests, brown and gold and deep enough to drown in. But it was not their color that staggered him. It was the pain in them, pain that mirrored his own in ways he had never expected to find outside himself. "I stopped because I was afraid," she whispered. Before Calum could respond, commotion erupted at the hall's main entrance. A group of wolves in traveling leathers strode through the doors, led by a tall male with the bearing of nobility and the cruel smile of someone who enjoyed causing suffering. "Alpha King Calum," the male called out, his voice carrying easily. "I am Lord Malric of the Thornwood Pack. I come to discuss the alliance between our territories." But Malric's eyes had found Isolde, and the look that crossed his face was not surprise. It was possession. "Ah," Malric said, his smile widening into something predatory. "I see you have found my property." Isolde's whole body began to shake. And Calum's wolf, that ancient beast of darkness and death, bared its teeth for the first time in years. The word property echoed through the great hall like a death knell. Calum watched Isolde shrink into herself, her shoulders curving inward as if she could make herself small enough to disappear. The trembling that had started in her hands now consumed her entire frame. "Your property?" Calum kept his voice neutral, though his wolf was clawing at his insides with renewed fury. Lord Malric strode closer, his entourage of 6 warriors fanning out behind him. He was handsome in the way of poisonous things, all sharp angles and cold beauty. "My former Omega." She ran from Thornwood 3 months past, violated the terms of her indenture. "I have been tracking her ever since." "You rejected her," Calum said, nodding toward the scar on her neck. "A severed mate bond." Something flickered in Malric's eyes. Annoyance, perhaps, or something darker. "A private matter, Alpha King. When an Omega proves defective, what choice does a lord have?" "Defective? How so?" Malric's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She failed to produce heirs. After 2 years of trying, her womb proved barren, worthless for breeding, but still useful for labor. His gaze raked over Isolde with undisguised contempt. "Though she seems to have found similar employment here." Isolde's knees buckled. She caught herself before she fell, but only barely. Calum could smell her fear now, sharp and acrid, underlaid with something else. Shame so profound it seemed to permeate her very soul. "The laws of Valdris do not recognize indenture," Calum said quietly. "She is mine by rights of debt and former bond. I have come only to claim what belongs to me." Malric stepped closer to Isolde, reaching for her arm. "Come, little Omega. You have caused enough trouble. We are leaving." "No," the word came from Isolde herself, so quiet it was barely audible. But it stopped Malric cold. "What did you say to me?" "I said no." Isolde's voice shook violently, but she lifted her head, meeting her former mate's eyes with the kind of desperate courage that only came from having nothing left to lose. "You severed the bond. You declared me worthless. You have no claim." Malric's hand shot out and closed around her throat. The movement was so fast, so brutally practiced, that Calum knew this was not the first time. Isolde's eyes went wide, her reddened hands clawing uselessly at Malric's grip. He lifted her until her toes barely touched the ground. "You forget yourself, Omega," Malric whispered. "You forget what happens when you disobey." Calum moved. One moment he stood 15 feet away. The next, his hand was wrapped around Malric's wrist, squeezing with enough force to grind the bones together. The Thornwood Alpha released Isolde with a howl of surprised pain, and she crumpled to the floor, gasping for air. "You touch her again," Calum said, his voice carrying the resonance of something far older than himself. "And I will remove your hand from your body." Malric's warriors surged forward, but Brennan and the Valdris guards moved to intercept them. Steel scraped against leather as weapons were half drawn on both sides. "You would start a war over a worthless Omega?" Malric snarled, cradling his injured wrist. "I would start a war over the dishonor of violence in my hall." "The girl owes me 300 gold marks," Malric said through gritted teeth. "Debt is debt, Alpha King." Calum turned to look at Isolde. "Is this true? Do you owe this debt?" She closed her eyes. "My father borrowed to pay for my mother's medicine. When she died anyway, and then he followed. The debt passed to me. Lord Malric offered to clear the slate if I became his mate. And when you failed to produce heirs, he rejected you but kept you as a servant." A tiny nod. Calum turned back to Malric. 300 gold marks. "Brennan, have the treasury prepare payment. I am purchasing her debt." Malric's eyes widened. "You cannot mean—" "She will work it off in Valdris, under my protection. You will have your gold and leave my territory by nightfall." Malric looked at Isolde one final time, and the promise in his gaze made Calum's blood run cold. "This is not over," that look said. "I will have her back, no matter what it takes." Then the Thornwood wolves were gone. Calum turned to find Isolde attempting to rise, her legs unsteady beneath her. She managed to stand, swaying slightly, and then she knelt at his feet. "Thank you, Alpha King. I will work hard to repay the debt. Whatever tasks you require of me, I will." "Stand up." She flinched at his tone but obeyed, confusion mixing with the fear in her autumn eyes. "You owe me nothing," Calum said quietly. "The gold was freely given. You are not indentured. You are not property. You are a free woman of Valdris." Isolde stared at him as if he had spoken in a foreign language. "I do not understand. You may stay in Valdris Keep, or leave as you choose. You may work or not as you prefer, but you belong to no one but yourself." Tears began to slide down her hollow cheeks. He turned to leave, knowing he should not look back. His wolf was howling, demanding, insisting that this broken Omega with her haunted eyes and rejection scar was somehow significant beyond all reason. "Why?" Her question stopped him at the door. "Why would you do this for me?" Isolde asked. "You do not know me. I am nothing." Calum did look back then. He looked at this small, starved, wounded woman who had somehow silenced a curse that had been screaming in his blood for 10 long years. "Because you were singing," he said. "And it was the first beautiful thing I have heard in a very long time." He left before she could respond, his heart hammering against his ribs. Isolde stood frozen in the great hall, long after the Alpha King's footsteps faded into silence. One moment she had been scrubbing floors, lost in a song she barely remembered learning, trying to forget the constant gnawing hunger in her belly. The next, she was free. Free. The word felt foreign, impossible. She had not been free since her father died 4 years ago. First came the debt collectors, then Malric's poisoned offer, then 2 years of trying to give him what he wanted, while her body failed her month after month. Now a king had looked at her, truly looked at her, and given her freedom as if it cost him nothing. "My lady?" A gentle voice pulled her from her spiraling thoughts. The advisor Brennan stood nearby. "If you will follow me, I will show you to your quarters." The chambers were larger than anything she had ever known. A real bed with actual blankets, a window overlooking snow-capped mountains, a fireplace already crackling with warmth. "The king has instructed that you want for nothing," Brennan said. "Why?" The question emerged as barely a whisper. Brennan studied her for a long moment. "I have served Calum since he was a boy of 12. In all those years, I have never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at you today." After he left, Isolde sat motionless on the edge of the bed. She pressed her palm to the rejection scar on her neck and tried to remember how to breathe. The scar throbbed constantly, a permanent reminder of her failure. When Malric had severed their bond, her wolf had retreated deep inside her consciousness and never fully returned. She ate slowly, forcing herself not to gorge. She bathed until the water turned gray. Then she crawled into the bed and fell into the deepest sleep she had experienced since childhood. The dreams came almost immediately. She stood in a forest of silver birch trees, moonlight filtering through bare branches. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. Her wolf lifted its head. A massive wolf emerged from the shadows. Its coat was black as midnight, but silver threads ran through the fur like veins of precious metal. Its eyes glowed with amber light. The black wolf approached slowly. When it reached her, it pressed its muzzle to her palm. The touch sent electricity racing up her arm, through her chest, straight to her heart. "You," the wolf seemed to say. "I have been waiting for you." Isolde woke gasping. When she pressed her palm to her rejection scar, she felt something she had not felt in years. Her wolf, stirring. Another knock came at her door. Brennan's expression was troubled. "The king requests your presence in the council chamber. There has been a development." The council chamber was filled with wolves who radiated power and authority. Calum sat at the head, and when Isolde entered, his amber eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Tell her," Calum said to Brennan. "Word has reached us from the border. Lord Malric did not return to Thornwood. Instead, he traveled to the court of the Eastern Dominion, seeking an audience with King Vareth." Isolde's blood turned to ice. "He has filed a formal complaint," Brennan continued, "claiming that Alpha King Calum stole his bonded mate and violated treaties between the territories. He is demanding either your return or war." "I have no bonded mate," Isolde whispered. "He rejected me. He severed the bond himself." "That is not what he claims." A severe woman spoke, her voice sharp as broken glass. "He tells King Vareth that you were his beloved Omega, stolen by force. He has witnesses who swear the rejection never happened, that the scar on your neck came from an accident. That is a lie. He tore the bond from my throat in front of the entire pack." "We believe you," Calum said quietly. But belief does not win wars, and King Vareth is looking for any excuse to move against Valdris. Then give me back to him. The words cost Isolde everything. I am not worth a war. No. The Alpha King's refusal resonated with absolute authority. My king, the severe woman began. Surely you must consider. I said no, General Sarah. She came to Valdris seeking sanctuary. She stands under my protection. I will not hand her over to a monster who would abuse and claim her against her will. Even if it means war? Calem turned to look at Isolde, and in that moment, she saw something behind the mask of the Alpha King. Something wounded and fierce and desperately lonely. Even then, he said, and deep in her chest, impossibly, her wolf began to howl. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of council meetings, messenger birds, and war preparations. Isolde watched it all from the edges, a ghost haunting the corridors of Valdris Keep. She had been given freedom, yes, but freedom felt hollow when it came at the cost of an entire kingdom. Every time she passed, soldiers drilling in the courtyard or heard generals arguing over battle strategies, guilt twisted deeper into her chest. This was her fault. All of it. She tried to make herself useful, offering to return to her scrubbing duties, to work in the kitchens, to do anything that might ease the burden she had placed on these people. But Brennan gently refused every request. The king's orders, he said each time. You are a guest, not a servant. A guest who might destroy everything, Isolde thought bitterly. She saw Calem rarely in those first days. He was consumed by preparations, meetings with allied pacts, strategic planning that stretched late into the night. But sometimes, when she walked the corridors unable to sleep, she would catch a glimpse of him, standing alone on a balcony, staring at the mountains, pacing his study, shoulders tight with tension. Once, their eyes met across the length of the great hall. The intensity of his gaze made her stumble, made her wolf rise up with a longing she did not understand. Then he looked away, and the moment shattered like thin ice. On the fifth night, Isolde woke to find her wolf pacing restlessly in her consciousness. The creature had grown stronger since that first stirring. It prowled the edges of her mind now, alert and watchful and hungry for something Isolde could not name. She slipped out of her chambers, drawn by instinct toward the moonlit gardens. She was not alone. Calem stood at the garden's center, his back to her, his face tilted toward the full moon. He wore no crown, no royal finery. In that moment, he looked less like a king and more like a man carrying the weight of worlds. He spoke without turning. You should be sleeping. So should you, she replied before she could stop herself. Sleep and I have not been friends for many years. Against every instinct screaming at her to flee, Isolde stepped closer. The curse? He turned, surprise flickering across his features. You know of it? The servants talk. They say it is killing you slowly. That is why you cannot find a mate. The curse is old magic, he said quietly. A blood debt from my grandfather's time. He wronged a witch of great power, and she condemned his line. Each Alpha King since has felt it eating at their soul. My father lasted until 40. I am not sure I will see 35. Is there no way to break it? According to the witch's dying words, only a true mate bond can shatter the curse. The problem is that no wolf can form a true bond with someone whose soul is already claimed by darkness. 17 women have tried. 17 have felt the curse and fled. Why did you really save me? Isolde asked finally. The truth this time. When I heard you singing, my wolf woke up. Truly woke, for the first time since the curse began to manifest. It looked at you and said mine with more certainty than I have ever felt about anything. Isolde stopped breathing. I know it makes no sense. You bear another male's rejection scar. There is no rational reason for this pull between us. And yet, my wolf, she breathed. She was dead. I thought she was dead. But when you looked at me in the hall, when you said my name, she woke up. She has been growing stronger every day since. Calem turned sharply. What did you say? I feel it too. This pull. This need. I thought I was broken forever, but when I am near you, she never finished the sentence. Calem moved, and suddenly his hands were cupping her face, his forehead pressed to hers. He did not kiss her. He simply held her, trembling with restraint. This cannot be, he whispered. The curse will destroy you. It destroys everyone who gets too close. I am already destroyed. Malric saw to that. But when I am with you, I feel like perhaps I could be rebuilt. Perhaps we both could. And then, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, Calem lowered his lips to hers. The kiss was soft at first, questioning. But when Isolde pressed closer, something broke loose. He deepened the kiss with a groan, his arms wrapping around her waist. Her wolf sang with joy. His answered in kind. Then Calum wrenched himself away with a gasp. His eyes had changed. The amber had been swallowed by pure gold, and she could see his wolf fighting for control. "Run," he growled. "Isolde, you need to run." "I cannot, my wolf wants to." But Isolde did not run. She reached up and touched his face, her palm against his fevered cheek. "I am not afraid of you." The Alpha King shuddered. His wolf surged forward, and his mouth was at her throat. Not kissing, tasting. His tongue traced the line of her rejection scar. "Mine." His wolf growled through human lips. "You are mine." Then his teeth grazed the exact spot where Malric had once torn his claim away. Pain and pleasure merged into something transcendent. She felt his wolf reaching for hers, felt her own wounded creature rising to meet it. Energy crackled between them, ancient and wild and terrifying. But just as their wolves were about to touch, just as the bond began to form, darkness exploded through Calum's body. He threw himself backward with a roar of agony, collapsing to his knees on the frost-covered grass. Black veins spread visibly across his skin, crawling up his neck and down his arms. The curse, awakening with fury. "Calum!" Isolde dropped beside him. "Do not touch me." His voice was barely recognizable, torn between man and beast and something darker than both. The curse felt the bond trying to form. "It is fighting back. Tell me what to do." "Nothing. There is nothing to do. I told you. The curse destroys everyone who gets too close." The black veins reached his eyes, turning the gold to something sickly and wrong. Calum convulsed, a scream tearing from his throat, and then he went limp in her arms. "Help!" Isolde screamed into the night. "Someone help us!" Through it all, she felt her wolf keening with loss. The almost bond throbbed like a fresh wound in her chest, incomplete and agonizing. What had she done? 3 days passed without word. Isolde haunted the corridor outside Calum's chambers like a wraith, refusing food, refusing sleep, refusing to move more than a few feet from his door. The guards watched her with pity that made her want to scream. Brennan emerged on the second day, his face gray with exhaustion. "He lives," was all he would say. "The healers are doing what they can. Let me see him." "I cannot. The curse is too active. Anyone who enters risks contamination." "I do not care about the risk." "But he does." Brennan's voice cracked. His last coherent words before the fever took him were about you. "He made me swear to keep you safe, to keep you away from the curse's reach." Isolde pressed her palm to the closed door, tears streaming silently. Through the wood, she could hear nothing. Not his heartbeat, not his breathing, nothing. It was as if he had already slipped away. On the third day, General Sarah found her still stationed outside his door. "The Omega who would be queen," the general said, her voice dripping with contempt. "Look what your presence has wrought." Isolde did not rise to the bait. She was too tired, too hollow. "I know what I have caused. Do you? Because of you, our king lies dying. Because of you, war comes to our borders. Because of you, everything he has built may crumble to ash. Then tell me how to fix it." The general's harsh laugh echoed off stone walls. "There is no fixing it, little Omega. The damage is done. The best thing you could do now is disappear before you destroy anything else." She left Isolde alone with those words ringing in her ears. Disappear? Yes. Perhaps that was the answer. If she was the catalyst for all this destruction, then removing herself from the equation might save everyone else. Malric wanted her. King Vareth demanded her return. If she surrendered herself, perhaps the war could be avoided. Perhaps Calum could recover without the almost bond draining his strength. The decision solidified like ice in her chest. That night, while the keep slept and the guard's attention wandered, Isolde slipped away from the corridor. She gathered nothing, she had nothing to gather, and made her way through servant passages she had mapped during her sleepless wandering. She was halfway across the moonlit courtyard when a voice stopped her cold. "Running away." "Little Omega?" Isolde spun to find a figure in Thornwood colors. "Lord Malric sends his regards. He knew you would try to run eventually. Weak things always do." More figures materialized from the darkness. 6 Thornwood wolves surrounding her. "How did you get inside the keep? Gold opens many doors. Now come quietly, and we will not have to damage you too badly." Isolde's wolf rose up with sudden fury. "I will not go with you." He lunged for her, and Isolde did something she had not done since before Malric broke her. She shifted. The transformation was agony after so long, bones cracking and muscles reshaping with brutal speed. But when it was done, a small gray wolf stood where the Omega had been, lips pulled back in a snarl. She bolted. A massive body slammed into her from the side, teeth closed around her scruff, pinning her to the ground. "Enough games. You are coming with us." Then a roar shattered the night. A black wolf larger than any Isolde had ever seen. Its coat threaded with veins of silver that pulsed with sickly light. Its eyes were gold swallowed by darkness. Calem. But not Calem. The curse had transformed him into something monstrous. In seconds, 5 of the 6 Thornwood wolves lay dead. Then it turned its terrible gaze upon her. For a moment, she saw nothing human in those eyes. Only hunger. Only darkness. Then, somewhere in those depths, a flicker of gold. Isolde, run, cannot, control. I am not running. She pressed her palm to the cursed wolf's muzzle. The darkness crackled against her skin, burning. I am staying right here. She could feel him. Calem, trapped inside this monster, fighting desperately for control. I see you, she whispered. Come back. The cursed wolf howled. The black veins pulsed once, twice, and then began to retreat. When it was over, Calem knelt naked and shaking on the bloody cobblestones, fully human once more. You should have run, he rasped. I told you before. Isolde knelt beside him. I am not afraid of you. The revelation of the Thornwood infiltration sent Valdres Keep into chaos. Isolde was examined by healers, her wounds dressed, her story taken by grim-faced guards. She told them everything, her plan to surrender herself, the ambush, the attack. She did not mention what had almost happened between her and Calem in the garden days before. Some things were too raw to share. Calem was confined to his chambers under healer supervision, the curse flare having left him dangerously weak. But this time, Isolde was not kept away. She sat beside his bed for hours, watching him sleep fitfully, counting each labored breath like a prayer. You saved him, Brennan said quietly, entering on the second day of the vigil. The healers say the curse should have consumed him entirely. Something pulled him back from the edge. Isolde did not answer. She knew what had pulled him back. She could still feel the echo of it, the almost bond that had formed in the garden, incomplete but powerful enough to reach him even through the darkness. The council meets in 1 hour, Brennan continued. They wish to discuss the Thornwood incident and its implications for the coming war. The king should be present, but in his condition. He will be present. Calem's voice, rough with exhaustion, made them both start. His eyes were open, fever bright, but lucid. Help me dress. My king, the healers strongly advise. The healers can advise all they like. My people need to see their Alpha King standing, not cowering in bed. Calem pushed himself upright with visible effort, his jaw tight against the pain. His eyes found Isolde's. And you should be there as well. She blinked. Me? You are central to everything that is happening. You should have a voice in the decisions that follow. The council chamber was packed when they arrived. Generals, advisors, pack elders, everyone of importance had gathered to discuss the crisis. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Calem entered with Isolde at his side, speculation burning in every gaze. General Sira stepped forward immediately. My king, you should be resting. You can handle nothing without my authority. Calem lowered himself into his chair with careful control, hiding any sign of weakness. Report. The general's jaw tightened, but she complied. The 6 Thornwood wolves entered through a bribed servant in the eastern kitchens. The servant has been detained and questioned. And the wolves themselves? 5 dead by your hand, my king. The 6th fled during the confusion and has not been found. Calem nodded slowly. So Malric will soon know his plan failed. He will know that his wolves were killed in Valdres territory. An act of war, one of the elders muttered. He will use this to justify open conflict. He would have justified open conflict regardless. Calem's voice was steady despite his pallor. Malric wants war. He has always wanted war. Isolde is merely his excuse. Which brings us to the central question, General Sira said. The Omega. What is to be done with her? She is not an object to be done with, Calem said sharply. She is the cause of our current crisis. If she had not been purchased, she would have been returned to Thornwood to continue being abused. Is that the Valdres way? Do we abandon the vulnerable to their tormentors? She is under my protection. Calem stood, and despite his weakness, Alpha authority rolled off him in waves. That makes her one of us. Anyone who disagrees may challenge me directly. Silence fell over the chamber. Isolde stepped forward before she could think better of it. I have something to say. Every gaze sharpened. Omegas did not speak in council meetings. Rejected Omegas certainly did not, but Calem nodded. Speak. I know that my presence has brought danger to your borders. If my surrender would prevent war, I would give myself over willingly. But it would not prevent war. Malric does not want me. He wants conquest. I lived in his household for 2 years. I know exactly what he is. An elderly woman rose. I am Orenna, keeper of the archives. Lord Malric's father attempted invasion of Valdris 40 years past. The grudge has festered ever since. Calum looked at Isolde with something like pride. She is not the cause. She is merely the excuse. Later, when the chamber emptied, Isolde asked the question burning in her mind. What happens now? Between us? Nothing can happen. The curse reacted violently to the almost bond. If we complete it, if we truly mate, the darkness will fight with everything it has. You would die. We both might. Then we fight the curse too. You said only a true mate bond can shatter the curse. What if the curse fought so hard precisely because it knows I am the one who can destroy it? What if it kills you in the process? Then at least I will have died fighting for something, for someone. She reached up to touch his face. I spent 2 years as Malric's victim. I will not spend another moment being afraid of what might happen. He pulled her close. War is coming. I cannot promise you safety. I cannot promise you survival. I am not asking for promises. Then what are you asking for? Time. Whatever time we have left, I want to spend it with you. Something shifted in his gaze. Hope, perhaps, or determination. Then you shall have it, he said. Whatever time remains, it is yours. The weeks that followed were the strangest of Isolde's life. She trained with the Valdris warriors, learning to fight in both human and wolf form. Her body, so long starved and weakened, slowly rebuilt itself under proper nourishment and rigorous exercise. Her wolf grew stronger too, no longer the cowering creature that had hidden in the shadows of her soul. Now it prowled with purpose, with hunger, with the desperate need to protect the male it had chosen. And Calum was everywhere. He taught her sword work in the mornings, his hands guiding her grip with patient precision. He sat beside her at meals, ensuring she ate enough to sustain her training. He walked with her through the gardens at night, sharing stories of his childhood, his parents, the kingdom he loved more than his own life. They did not kiss again, did not speak of the almost bond that thrummed between them like a living wire. The curse had quieted since that night in the courtyard, but they both knew it was merely waiting, gathering strength for the next assault. You are holding back, Calum said one morning, circling her in the training yard. Your wolf wants to strike, but you keep pulling her back. Isolde wiped sweat from her brow. I am afraid of hurting you. You cannot hurt me. Your curse is my burden to bear. When war comes, you will face wolves who want to kill you. They will not hold back. You cannot afford to either. They sparred until Isolde's muscles screamed for mercy. But by the end, she had landed 3 hits on the Alpha King, a feat that made the watching soldiers murmur with surprise. Then messengers arrived from the border. Isolde was summoned to the council chamber along with the generals and advisors. When she entered, the tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. Malric's forces have crossed into Valdris territory, General Sarah announced. 3,000 wolves, supported by 2,000 from King Vareth's eastern dominion. 5,000 wolves. Valdris had perhaps 2,000. 4 days until they arrive. On the 3rd night, Isolde found Calum staring at a portrait of a woman with kind eyes. My mother. The curse took her when I was 12. My father followed within the year, unable to bear the loss of his true mate. You still could find what they had. No. I have made my peace with this, Isolde. After the battle, if I fall, I want you to flee to the northern packs. They will shelter you. I am not leaving you. When I die, the curse will lash out. Anyone nearby will be caught in its death throes. I will not take you with me. He kissed her forehead, soft and final, and left her standing alone. The morning of the battle dawned gray and cold. Isolde found Calum at the head of the Valdris forces, resplendent in black armor. The curse marks were visible on his neck, dark veins pulsing with sickly light. He was burning through his remaining strength. You should not be here, he said when she took her place beside him. And yet here I am. Something flickered in his eyes. Pride, perhaps, or love too painful to name. The enemy forces appeared on the horizon. Malric rode at the front, his smile visible even at distance. Surrender the Omega and yourself, Malric called, and I will spare your people. Calum's response was to shift. The black wolf threw back its head and howled defiance. Behind him, 2,000 Valdris wolves answered. The battle was chaos and blood and screaming. Isolde fought at Calum's side, her wolf moving in perfect synchronization with his despite the incomplete bond. She was smaller than most of their enemies, but she was fast, and the training had honed her instincts to razor sharpness. Thornwood wolves fell beneath her claws, their blood hot against her fur. But for every enemy she killed, 2 more seemed to take their place. The Valdris forces were being pushed back, overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Isolde could see Calum fighting like a demon possessed, the curse energy crackling around him as he tore through enemy after enemy, but even he was tiring. His movements growing slower, the black veins spreading further across his wolf form. Then she saw Malric. The Thornwood Alpha had hung back during the initial clash, letting his soldiers absorb the worst of Valdris's resistance. Now he moved forward, his massive gray wolf cutting through the battlefield toward one target. Calum. No. The word tore from Isolde's throat as she shifted back to human form. Calum, behind you. Too late. Malric's wolf slammed into Calum, teeth closing around his throat. Isolde ran toward them. Malric released Calum and laughed. Come to watch your lover die? He shifted to human form, foot planted on Calum's heaving side. You can join him momentarily. Let him go. Or what? You, who cowered at my feet for 2 years? I am not that woman anymore. Isolde closed her eyes and reached inside herself. Past her wolf, past her fear, past everything she had been taught about her own limitations. She reached for the bond, that golden thread connecting her soul to Calum's, and pulled. The world exploded into light. The bond snapped into place with a force that drove her to her knees. His memories flooded through her mind. 10 years of loneliness and darkness and desperate hope, and she felt the curse. It rose with shrieking fury, clawing at the newly formed bond. The darkness was ancient, malevolent. It wanted to consume them both. But the bond was stronger. Isolde poured everything she had into that golden connection. All her pain, all her hope, all her love. She felt Calum doing the same, his wolf howling in triumph as it finally claimed its mate. The curse screamed. Black energy exploded outward. And then, impossibly, the darkness began to crack. Golden light poured through the fissures, spreading across the black veins. The curse thrashed like a wounded beast, but the bond was relentless. It burned through the darkness like sunfire through shadow. When the light faded, Calum lay completely still. Calum, please. His eyes opened. Clear amber, untainted by darkness. The curse marks had vanished. You did it, he breathed. We did it, together. Malric snarled. This changes nothing. My army still outnumbers yours. Calum rose. Without the curse draining his strength, the Alpha King moved with power Isolde had never witnessed. When he shifted, the wolf was pure midnight without a trace of sickly silver. Your army is watching. The battle had stopped. Every wolf had witnessed the curse's destruction. Kill them! Malric screamed at his soldiers. No one moved. The curse is broken, General Sarah called out. The Alpha King stands whole. Who among you wishes to test our strength now? One by one, the enemy wolves began to back away. Within minutes, the overwhelming army had scattered. Malric stood alone. This is not over. I will. Isolde's wolf moved faster than thought, faster than Malric could react. Her teeth found his throat, and she bit down with all the fury of 2 years of abuse, 2 years of degradation, and 2 years of being told she was worthless. When she released him, the Lord of Thornwood fell dead at her feet. Silence stretched across the battlefield. Then Calum shifted back to human form and pulled Isolde into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. His heart pounded against hers, strong and steady and free. My mate, he murmured against her hair. My brave, impossible mate. My king, she whispered back. My home. Around them, the Valdris wolves began to howl. Not in mourning, not in battle cry, but in celebration. Their alpha had found his true mate. The curse that had plagued their kingdom for 3 generations was finally, irrevocably broken. Isolde tilted her head back to look at Calum's face. The weariness was still there, the exhaustion of battle. But beneath it all, she saw something she had never expected to find. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. What happens now? She asked. Calum smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Now we rebuild. Now we heal. Now we rule together, as true mates should. That sounds terrifying. It does, he kissed her softly. But I find that I am no longer afraid. Not with you beside me. Isolde pressed her forehead to his chest, listening to the heartbeat that now matched her own through their completed bond. She thought of the broken Omega she had been, scrubbing floors and singing to forget her pain. She thought of all the darkness she had survived, all the cruelty she had endured, and she realized that every moment of suffering had led her here, to this battlefield, to this king, to this bond that had shattered an ancient curse and rewritten the fate of a kingdom. She was no longer the rejected Omega with no pack, no family, no value. She was Isolde of Valdris, true mate to the Alpha King, breaker of curses and slayer of monsters. She was finally, irrevocably home. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the story. A big thank you to everyone who is following. Your support truly means the world to me.